I'm Rita Van Zandt, and I'm here at the Blue Ridge Bookfest having the opportunity to talk to some of our authors. And one of the authors I'm excited to bring to you today is Michel Stone. She's written her first novel, and we're the beneficiaries of that. We're going to be talking about that today. Welcome, Michel.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
And now you're a South Carolinian. Is that the way you say it?
Yeah, that's the way you say it, yes.
Where was home originally?
I grew up on Johns Island and lived there really until I left to go to college. And now I am in Spartanburg, and I've been there about 18 years.
Now, they say write where you know. And yet the book that we're talking about today, The Iguana Tree, doesn't start out in South Carolina.
No, it starts out in Mexico. The characters end up in South Carolina. And ironically, I love the South Carolina Lowcountry where my characters end up, but I've always had a hard time writing about it in my fiction until I wrote about it from the perspectives of people from other countries.
I see. Oh, so you're not looking at it from your eyes, but from the character's eyes.
Right.
Now, the topic of this book really is about people who want to come into America, but they have to come in illegally or undocumented because they don't want to wait the time that they need to. Why did you choose to write it as a fiction instead of a nonfiction? Because it could also be a nonfiction topic.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I wanted to write a story about, well, I'd met a young couple who was living in the low country of South Carolina.
All right.
And when I say young, they were probably early 20s, and they had an infant. And through the course of my getting to know them, they confided that they'd crossed the border without the proper papers with their baby. And that story fascinated me, and it just haunted me. And I knew that I wanted to incorporate that in fiction somehow. So I didn't set out to write a story necessarily about the border and immigration. I think if I would have done that with some sort of political agenda, it would not have been a good piece of fiction. So I set out to write this story about a family going through a hardship and making choices that would ultimately determine the rest of their lives and their fate. And to me, I think of immigration and the border sort of as the background of this story, although it's a major part of the story. But
well, I didn't know whether you had ever heard this, but I ran across it. We think of the United States as a nation of immigrants, and yet Ben Franklin, our noble statesman and international traveler, fought against immigration into the United States of the Germans. And he warned that the Germans would take over our nation and force us to speak only German. And he also said that Germans shouldn't be allowed to come here because they don't look like us, they don't speak like us, and they don't share our values. Isn't that amazing?
That is amazing.
We still hear the same argument
today.
And yet the immigration, the people that come here, strengthen our culture and bring about a lot of good things. And the main two people that you write about, this young couple, what are their dreams and aspirations for why they want to come to America?
Well, the young couple in my novel is not based on it's not based on that couple who I said I met early on, but I did do a lot of research for this book, and I interviewed folks who were here without the proper papers. I traveled down to Mexico a couple of times, and of course it's in the news all the time. If you just pay attention, it's in the newspapers and on the TV. And I think my characters are a culmination of all those people I read about and interviewed. And I think if you were to try to pinpoint their dreams, it's just to make a better life for their baby, and for future children they may have, not so much for themselves actually, but for their children, for education and health and medicine and general quality of life. I think a lot of people want to come here because in ways they have the perception that we're like a utopia and that everybody here is happy and healthy and educated. We know that it's not quite that way. But the flip side is, compared to where many of them are coming from, in ways it is a utopia.
Right. Now, Hector is the husband.
Right.
He comes first. Is that typical of the people you interviewed?
Yes, it is. Actually, most, I think maybe all of the ones I interviewed, actually, now that you asked that, I never thought about it, but yeah, the husbands come first, and the coyotes or the smugglers, in a way, one sort of gets what one pays for. Some are $50, some are $3,000. And so typically, what I researched is that the husbands come first and save up enough money to pay for coyotes to bring a wife over, and then eventually the children over. And incidentally, I heard recently that 80% of families who have crossed the border in this fashion, at some point, the parents and children are separated during that process.
Well, the horrific story that you tell about Hector coming here and later his wife, and pronounce her name for me.
Lilia.
Lilia. Her coming here all of a sudden you get an empathy in a way that the statistics in the newspaper just don't describe. And you do such a good job describing that. Very, several people that wrote reviews said it was a page turner, and that's absolutely the case.
Well, thank you. You know, Eudora Welty said something like this, and I may butcher this quote, but she said, if you can tell the story of one person in one place and tell that story well, it could speak for any person and in any place.
Right.
And I think it's the job of the fiction writer, at least I feel that, to build empathy, to expose readers to circumstances, beliefs that may be different than their own. Not necessarily to persuade them, but just to open their minds up a little bit, open doors to things they maybe had not considered before. Through the course of the last years, I've traveled around speaking to different audiences and doing readings. I get asked about immigration a lot. And what I've come to figure out about myself and my own beliefs during this process is that so often, myself included, we look down at the issue of immigration from a 30,000-foot view, and it's a big, hard knot. And to try to break it apart into its components and the various viewpoints is a tough nut to crack. But I think if we dial down, down, down to see one face and one situation, whatever that may be, and see that one person's story, the next time we're looking at immigration from 30,000 feet up, we're going to have a different perspective.
There'll be faces to go along with the statistics or the images. I think that's discrimination in general. What the couple that they meet when they get here, Lucas and Elizabeth, Lucas has some of that attitude, doesn't he, in a way? He doesn't want help. He doesn't know what to do with this person necessarily.
Right. Yes, all of that is true. And in addition to that, Lucas has recently had an accident where he's lost a leg. Not giving anything away there. That happens.
I didn't know whether I should
no,
say.
it's okay. It's okay. He's lost a leg, and he is typically a hard-working farmer. And so a lot of that is his own humility. I mean, he doesn't want help for a number of reasons. One being it shows his weakness and his inability to do what he's always done.
Right.
So it's a combination of factors tied into his attitude, I think.
So the couple who live in Edisto Island have to adapt as well as the couple that have come from Mexico.
Right. Absolutely.
And thus the story progresses
Yes,
from there.
that's
There's lots of times people think you're going to write just a happy-go-lucky story, everything's wonderful. In a book like this, how do you choose to write about the beast instead of the best?
Oh, that's a great question. For a first novel, you know, I didn't know. I sort of had an idea of how the book would end. But I will tell you, the first draft, I did sort of end it more happily ever after. I tied things up with a nice big bow. And my editor for this book, who's C. Michael Curtis, who's the longtime editor of the Atlantic, and he's still the fiction editor of the Atlantic, read this, and he suggested that I not tie it up so nicely. He said, you know, in real life, bad things happen to good folks every day, and they just have to figure out how to keep going. And so I thought about that, and I changed the ending based on his advice. And I like the ending that's not so wrapped up tightly much better. I think it's more true to life. It's real, and I think it leaves the reader thinking about things a little more than maybe they would have otherwise.
It's not. It doesn't beat you. The novel doesn't beat you over the head with any kind of moral issues that you must decide or whatever. But I did notice a lot of reviews afterwards said there's got to be a sequel. People don't like that you didn't wrap it up, and yet it's perfect that you didn't wrap it up. So are you getting a lot of pressure from your readers?
Yes, and I didn't anticipate that. And the truth is I had not considered writing a sequel. I had actually, when I wrapped this book up, before it was even off to a publisher, I'd started my second novel, which it was not at all a sequel. And I've written probably close to 150 pages on that book. And then my progress on that book got really slowed down because I started traveling on book tour for the Iguana Tree. And everywhere I went, literally, I think today is my 77th audience in the last year. And everywhere I stopped, people in the audience who had read the book said, "Are you working on a sequel?" And I would always say, no, not doing a sequel, until about 2 weeks ago when I was in Oregon in a big room full of folks who'd read the book. And that was the first question, "Are you writing a sequel?" And I said, yes, I'm writing a sequel. And the headline in the paper was "Authors announced it here. She's writing a sequel." So I thought, oh my goodness, I've got to do it now.
Oh, that's great. It's in the paper. It must be true.
Right.
Well, in some of the reviews, they say couldn't put it down, page turner, and they called you a poet. I thought that was a really nice comment to make for a fictional writer, because I don't know that you write poetry, but that means you use words in a really rich way.
That is fascinating and makes me very happy, because I'm a horrible poet. I love poetry, and some of my favorite, Ron Rash is a good friend of mine, and he's a fabulous poet. And I read everything Ron writes because he's a wonderful novelist, but I like Ron's books. The plot is secondary to me. I just love his use of language.
Yes.
And when I am reading, when I am writing, I often pick up poetry to read to inspire me in my fiction writing, because I think poetry is the hardest thing to write, and I think a short story is a little less difficult, and I think a novel is the easiest thing of all to write. Takes a lot more time.
Wait a minute, I think we just made headlines again.
No, because in a poem, every word carries so much weight, and every word matters. There's not that room to meander. So I loved being called a poet. It's not true, but anybody who wants to call me that, I'll take it.
Oh, great. The other thing that I noticed was how many people use the word heart in their review. They said it touched their heart, you write with heart, you broke their heart.
Oh, my.
Anyway, again, there was a real emotional contact between the writer and the book, which I think is why you're getting so much publicity on it, and so many people are telling their friends to read it or so forth.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you. You're pointing out things to me I didn't know, so this is wonderful.
Well, now tell me, do you get up every morning, tell your children goodbye, look at a blank sheet of paper, or do you write on a computer, or do you handwrite? What's the process?
For years I wrote on paper with a pen, and I was not comfortable writing on the laptop. But now I have 3 children. My third was born during the process of writing this book. And just with the how full my days are with life in general, there's no time to write it freehand. So everything's done on the laptop now, and now I've become more comfortable doing that. Yeah, in an ideal day, that's right. I'd send them off to school and I'd sit and write until I picked them up, but I don't have very many ideal days. So I try to do that. That's what I shoot for. Doesn't always work out that way.
Do you have a number of pages that you must write each day? Do you make yourself?
No, but I just try to get in that chair and write. That right now with my children are 7, 10, and 14, and life, like I said, is full. I feel like I've done my job if I sit in that chair and write something at least once a day. That's my goal.
And which is harder, writing or rewriting?
Oh, rewriting is so much fun. And that, yes, getting the initial bones down is much harder. Then to come back and sort of flesh out those bones, that's the fun part for me.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, the rewriting is where you take that kind of mediocre sentence and you get to find just the right word. And you get to labor over just how to make it better. I love that.
Do you have a thesaurus next to you
yes.
at all?
Yes, I do.
That's great. Do you write for yourself or for others?
I think you got to write for yourself. I think if you're writing for others, I'm just only speaking for myself here, but if you write for others, for me, I can't do that because you just have to be true to your heart and true to what you're inspired to write. And I'm inspired to write when I'm inspired to write. You know, it's interesting. I've had people come up to me who know I'm a writer and say, I've got a great story for you to write. It's about... And I can't do that. You may come to me with really a great story. I've had people come to me with stories that just blew my socks away, but it's their story. It's not my story.
Right.
And writing a novel is a lonely endeavor. You have to be alone in a room and bang on those keys and write that story. And it's a long process.
Can you think of any place when you were writing The Iguana Tree where you were trying to force your characters to go here and they insisted they wanted to go in a different direction?
Oh, yes. They're wily, those characters. Yeah, they, you know, I had a general notion of what I wanted Hector and Lilia to experience. Again, that's the bare bones of, okay, they come here, they do this, they're doing this. But there are twists and turns in the book that I never anticipated until suddenly they were happening, and it just felt like what needed to happen, but it wasn't that I had it mapped out in my head beforehand.
Another question, do you read out loud the dialogue so you hear it to see if it's natural, or do you have that in your brain, the dialogue?
I think I have it in my brain. I think I do. You know, it's, at least for this book, it may be different for the next one, but for this one, it was interesting. The dialogue, you have native English, American English speakers, and native Spanish speakers who are speaking English as a second language.
Right.
And for me, that was a tricky part of writing this dialogue. When the Spanish speakers are speaking to one another, they would be speaking Spanish, of course. But I'm writing it in English because I know that English speakers are reading my book. So when the Spanish speakers are speaking to one another, it's written in perfect grammatically correct English because that's how they would be speaking their Spanish. But when they are speaking English to Americans, it would be a sort of a Spanglish, choppy English. And so I tried to write it the way it sounded in my interviews when I interviewed these people.
Did you write out some things phonetically so that you could come back to it later?
Yes, I did.
That's it. Did you ever think you would want to tape record it so you could hear their Spanglish?
You know, that would have been a great idea. I didn't do that, but I interviewed quite a few people, and I really, I really had an ear for just the rhythm of their language when they were speaking English to me. I mean, sort of like a perpetual loop in my head when you have a favorite song you listen to, because I was so immersed in the writing of this book and their stories, and I wanted to get them right. It was so important to me. I know as a novelist, we're making things up. It's fiction. But there's certain components you have to get just right, or it knocks the shine off your story.
Well, it does seem like that as you wrote that, I felt like maybe you had lived in their community or whatever. There's a real authenticity in my mind to how they sounded, how they were trying to say the words correctly, or actually Hector ends up getting a dictionary, Spanish English dictionary, trying to work on. And anyway, you fooled me. I thought maybe you'd lived in the community where you had.
Well, I hadn't, but I did spend a lot of time
So a
with
lot of
people.
research. You said you start? I think we talked ahead of time. You started this as a short story, and then
Yes.
it grew.
Yes, it's interesting. It started as a prompt that I was given in a writer's workshop. And the prompt was to describe an object in a paragraph, an object that I was really familiar with. And at the time, I just had my daughter, my second child, and so I described the rocking chair in her room because I was spending a lot of time there. That was an easy paragraph to write. Then the instructor said, now I want you to take that object and move it somewhere completely unfamiliar to you and describe it again.
Wow.
And so I considered my age and my education and my family life and all those things, and I thought, what is completely unfamiliar to me? So I moved that rocking chair to the darkened corner of a tin shanty in a third world village with a teen mother in it, rocking her baby. And I described my rocking chair in that setting. And at the end of that workshop, I didn't want to abandon that mother and that child I had created. And so I went home and wrote a short story about them from the perspective of that mother in the chair.
And that's used in the...
That's Lilia, yeah.
So we need to probably reference the iguana tree, the title.
Yeah, that was not originally the title. The original title, my working title was The Crossing. But Cormac McCarthy, little did I know, had written a book called The Crossing years ago. And so I didn't want to use the title he'd used.
Right.
So the iguana tree, there's a tree in the courtyard where Lilia lives in her village, where an iguana often suns on the limb above Lilia's head. And Lilia's trying to figure a lot of things out in her life. And that courtyard is sort of her holy place, her happy place where she goes to mull things and think things over. And she sits beneath the iguana's tree. And that iguana and that space comes to represent where she's most comfortable in life.
As you write about their life in Mexico, the couple and the baby, the reader gets a feeling that there's a normalcy there, a comfortableness there, that I could see myself wanting to go there instead of they're coming here.
Yeah.
There is a familiar, the family, the support system, the quietness, the religion, all of that. You can see, so many times in the U.S. we think, oh, of course they want to come here. But they're leaving something very precious when they leave their community.
And as I was writing the book initially in an early draft, I didn't know if I needed to really include the bad stuff in their village so that readers would understand why they wanted to leave. And ultimately, my editor said, it is such a prominent issue right now. I think readers know that people from Mexico, many of them are migrating here. So I didn't include those details, but I will tell you, when I was down there doing my research, the village in the book is just, there is no Puerto Isidore, which is, but it's based on a real village that I visited. And while it was also a lovely little fishing village, very bucolic, there was a lot of poverty. The sewer system was very rudimentary. It was very third world in a lot of ways. Every evening they would incinerate all the waste in the village, and the funk and the smell of that incinerated waste was horrific every afternoon, to the point where you thought, I shouldn't be outside breathing right now. Because
I bet.
So all those things, that's what Hector and Lilia would live with every day. And so there was no thought of any college or university nearby, a lot of poverty. And so all those things, well, I don't go into that because I do want to show the good things too in their village.
One of the reviewers said, I am absolutely opposed to people coming from other countries, all this, but I really like this book. And I thought that was about the best compliment you could get, that somebody who picked it up knowing that
Yeah.
they weren't going to like it and were going to fight against it, ended up writing, I thought, a beautiful review of it. So
I don't know if I may have read that one. I try not to read too many, but I saw, maybe it was Amazon, I'm not sure, but
Yes.
I saw somewhere where a man in Texas who was adamantly opposed to any sort of immigration or amnesty said something along those lines, and he said, but of the books I've read on this topic, this is my favorite.
Right.
So I was very pleased by that.
I think you should be. Now, I want to know, because we're in the social media, websites, emails, as a new author, do you use that a lot?
I do some. The Iguana Tree has its own Facebook page. I have a
right.
personal Michel Stone Facebook page. And then the Iguana Tree has its own page as well. And I try to post most things on both sites. But the Iguana Tree has quite a few fans, people I don't know, whereas more Facebook for me are people I do know. But I do try to use that a lot. I understand that that is the way we are these days.
Right.
I'm on Twitter. I'm a failure on Twitter. I do it occasionally, but
You're better than I am. Then I
well,
haven't gotten to it yet.
and then all the other things, whatever they are, all those social media, I'm just not so good at it. I'd rather spend my time writing than talking about my writing.
But I do think this is a book that would be so good for book clubs. And I don't know whether you set up question and answers that book club could use, but that would be something that I could see. I don't know whether you've done that yet, but I would think that would work.
I do. The book has been used by quite a number of book clubs, which have been great. And I've also Skyped with some book clubs who are far away, who I couldn't get to them for one reason or another. And I do have those available. And as a matter of fact, I do have my own website as well, michelstone.com. And there's a link on there to contact me. So if a book club is interested in getting questions, I will email those to anybody. I do have a list of questions I've come up to generate book club discussions.
Well, I told you I specifically picked you to interview today, and you have just done a great job. I'm so glad you were able to come, and if people get a sense of the book, I know they're going to pick it up and read it. And so I thank you very much for spending time with us today. Michel Stone, the book is The Iguana Tree, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it like I did.